Hi, I want to talk about listening today. Number one leadership competency that I see lacking out there when I'm working with leaders in leadership programs and teams and situations, even with families, that if we could get better at the competency of listening, we can be doing a whole lot better out there inside of our organizations and families to be able to let people know that they have a voice at the table and a role to play. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, yeah, I know they're bad listeners. We need to get them onto this. They're bad listeners, but I'm not. And well, that might be true. I also have experience being out there and knowing that, when you're well rested and feeling good, you can roll with good listening. And then there's probably other times and in other circumstances and with certain personalities where you really struggle to listen. So what I'm talking about today is using and building that muscle of active listening in every domain of your life and with every personality. Number one, we are not trained as kids to learn how to listen. Do you remember back in grade school where you kind of learned how to debate points? But we never learned, what does it actually take to listen to someone fully, let them know you've understood them, and move forward with some kind of way of collaborating to make people's points of view work. We didn't learn that. And so this is what's really interesting is when you ask someone, and this comes from Kate Murphy, she's out of the US and she's now a journalist, and she's talked to all kinds of different occupations that involve active listening. And she's surveyed people and said, hey, what does great active listening look like? And all of them have gone, I have no idea. Because the truth of the matter is much of our experience is being with a bad listener. And we typically know what that looks like. Someone who's interrupting us, someone who's not hearing what we're saying, not capturing the spirit of what we're saying, responding in a totally illogical way, which then leads us to believe that they didn't hear us at all. So I think what's really interesting is that we don't have a lot of data points of really great listening. We have a lot of data points of poor listening. And so we know what that looks like. So when we're trying to figure out how to be good listeners ourselves, there's not a lot of great examples out there. And I think what's important is to understand what's happening in your brain when you hear a contrary opinion. And this is also Kate Murphy's content. She says, look, if you were to take an MRI of your brain during an exchange with someone when they're claiming their staunch and strong opinion on something, what happens in your brain is it lights up as if a bear is chasing you. That's how fearful our brain is in response to simply someone else's divergent or strong opinion that's quite different than ours. So what that tells us is that we need a lot of training to be able to stand in and hear and stay tuned to someone else's opinion because our brain is having that reaction. So when I say training, I don't mean like skill development training. I mean like practice. Like paying attention to, like noticing I'm reacting and working my way through that so that I can stay in exchange with someone and be able to take their opinion and figure out what to do. Let them know I've heard them, first of all, and then figure out what to do with it. Okay, so now let's move to what does great listening actually look like and what does it need to contain? First and foremost, every great listener out there has an ability to stay open. And what they mean by open is that their mind is open to another point of view. So there's empathy inherent in that, right? Which is, hey, I'm trying to understand how you're seeing it from your view and how this makes sense to you. But open also means I've checked my biases, or I'm aware of the fact that I have biases in my thinking and in my perspective. So, and maybe even how I feel about you. I've checked my feelings about that too. So staying open is one of those things that is very difficult. Like we understand what it means in open. Okay, I got it, stay open. But when it actually comes to the practice of staying open, it is much more difficult than we know or understand. And it takes a lot of intention, and I would argue even preparation. William Ury in his book, Getting to Yes, and then also Getting Over No, he talks about how important this is to actually prepare ourselves for listening, because of how difficult it is, how busy our minds are. And if you think about it, really bright people have trouble slowing things down, because your brain works much faster than someone's ability to speak. So you're already trying to put things in boxes and keep moving, concluding where is this going, and that actually gets in the way of your listening. So I think this is an important element that William Ury is referring to, is what does it take to slow ourselves down, stay present, and stay open. The other thing that Kate Murphy says is to act as if it's an invitation. So everything about my body language and my presentness with you suggests that you can tell me anything and it's okay. And then I think that one other thing to consider is the medium through which we are using to communicate with others and to show our listening. On anything that's got emotional content, we need to pay attention to nonverbals. So if it's just like, hey, I'm going to the store, no problem, right? It doesn't really matter what's going on with my nonverbals. But if it's something that's sensitive to how someone's going to react, I need to be thinking about this. And in fact, the argument is somewhere along the lines of 38% is tone, 55% is my body language and nonverbals, and only 7% are the words. And so you can imagine, right? Email and text are largely just that 7%, the words, unless you've got a great emoji game, which, I don't know what eggplant means, but somebody might. But you get what I'm saying, right? Is that we are striving to put tone and into like a texts in some of these mediums, because we know these mediums fall short. And a lot of our communication is going through those mediums. So it's for you to be thinking about, is this content sensitive in any nature? And am I worried at all about what this person might perceive from what I'm saying or the exchange? And therefore, I should not do it through one of those mediums. So picking your medium appropriately is really important. And maybe going and having a face-to-face or even a video chat of some kind is better than text or email. Okay, now finally, I just want to make this point, and this is Dr. Laura Mears. Anybody who's a speaker who's trying to say something has a couple of questions on their mind. Do you hear me? And does anything I say matter to you? So first and foremost, the fact that everyone wants to matter is a super important point. Colleagues inside organizations, family members, people who you work with in the community and in churches and in places, they want to know that they matter to you and that their point of view matters. And so if we take that lens to any exchange where someone is speaking to us, hey, they want to know that they've been heard and they want to know that they matter in this conversation. How can I communicate that back to them? How can I let them know that that's true? And you might be saying in your head, well, what if they don't matter? What if they're speaking about something they shouldn't be talking about? Or it's like, okay, well, maybe that is the case, but that's slightly different than ignoring them or kind of keeping them out of the conversation. Because what I should be doing is educating or encouraging some analysis or self-assessment about what is the role of this individual in the conversation. So sometimes that could come from the scope, like figuring out the appropriate scope of when people are involved and in what capacities, so setting that clear. And that can come in project conversations, in team conversations, family charters, anything like that that sets responsibilities and timing of who does what and when and where. But it could also come in the form of feedback, right? Is this the appropriate place for you to be bringing that point of view? And what's another appropriate way I could give them, or another medium I could give them to have their point of view heard, if in fact this is not the correct one? Okay, so I offer those to you as just key elements that I think are really important for us as leaders to expand the space from which we can listen more effectively to colleagues and start the great conversation of having good discourse, good dialogue between us, so that we can grapple with issues instead of thinking that I don't have to listen to this person, there aren't contrary opinions around this table, or what they're saying doesn't matter. None of those are true. And so let's make space for when and where people can listen, and the extent to which we can show up with that open invitation, open mind, intentional to listen, considering the medium, most likely face-to-face, and also making sure I have that lens on for what is this person trying to say, and how do I show them that they matter, or what they say matters. Thanks, have a great day, and I want to hear how it's going out there, so please drop me a note and let me know. Thanks.